day had started like any other, with a calm morning sunlight spilling through the windows and the quiet hum of life in the house. The man walked slowly through the narrow hallway, the wooden floor creaking softly beneath his steps. It was a house full of memories, every corner holding a story, and today he felt a pull toward a part of it he rarely visited. At the far end of the hallway, there was a small room that seemed almost forgotten. Dust floated lazily in the light that slipped through the slightly open window, and shelves lined the walls, stacked with objects that had long lost their purpose, but somehow retained their mystery. He paused at the doorway, his eyes scanning the shelves. Most of the items were ordinary enough, old books, trinkets, boxes of photographs, but one thing caught his attention immediately. It was a small, unusual object placed on the middle shelf, standing out among the clutter. It was strange, almost alive in a way, as if it had a story that refused to be ignored. It was a beautiful piece, carefully crafted, and despite its size, it seemed to command attention. There was something magnetic about it that made him take a step closer. Just as he reached for it, he heard a voice behind him. "Don't touch that," someone said firmly. He froze, startled. It was a warning, the kind of warning that made the hairs on the back of the neck stand up. He turned slowly and saw the figure standing at the doorway, eyes wide with concern, hands slightly raised. The warning was simple, yet heavy, as if touching the object could somehow upset the balance of the entire room. The voice carried both fear and care, a mix that made him hesitate. His curiosity was immediate and relentless. He had always been drawn to things that others warned him against. There was a part of him that wanted to understand why the warning existed, to see what made this object so dangerous or so special that it demanded attention and caution at the same time. He glanced back at the shelf, his fingers twitching slightly, wanting to reach out, to touch it and discover its secrets. The room was silent again except for the soft creaking of the floor and the distant hum of the outside world. He could feel the weight of the warning pressing on him, but at the same time he could feel the pull of the object. It was as if it was calling him, whispering stories he could not hear, stories that could only be revealed through touch. He took a slow step forward, his eyes fixed on it, trying to calm the rush of emotions rising in him. The object seemed simple at first glance, but as he looked closer, he noticed the details. The edges were smooth but not uniform, like someone had carved it with care. The surface had tiny lines etched into it, patterns that seemed random at first but might have meaning if he looked long enough. It shimmered slightly in the sunlight, reflecting light in a way that made it look almost alive. He felt a strange warmth from it, even though he hadn't touched it yet. It was both inviting and intimidating, a puzzle that dared him to understand it. He remembered the warning again. "Don't touch that." The words echoed in his mind. He wondered why it was so dangerous or forbidden. He thought about the people who had owned it before, the hands that had touched it, the places it had been. There was a history there, a life that seemed to hum quietly beneath its surface. He could almost imagine the stories it held, the experiences it had witnessed, the secrets it kept hidden. His imagination ran wild, picturing scenes from long ago, voices that might have spoken around it, events that had shaped its presence. Yet the warning lingered, making him think twice. It wasn't just a casual suggestion. It was a firm, serious caution. He felt the tension in the room, a silent pressure that seemed to grow stronger with every moment he stayed there. His mind raced, trying to balance curiosity with caution, excitement with reason. He could feel his pulse quickening, a mixture of anticipation and fear that made him aware of every sound, every shadow, every subtle movement in the room. He decided to step back for a moment, to let his thoughts settle. He leaned against the doorway, watching the object, letting his eyes trace the lines and curves again. He noticed how it seemed to change slightly depending on the angle, how the light played with its shape, creating shadows that hinted at hidden depth. It was unlike anything he had seen before, ordinary in size but extraordinary in presence. The more he looked at it, the more he felt that it was alive in a quiet, mysterious way, waiting for the right person to understand it. As he stood there, he remembered the times he had ignored warnings before, times when curiosity had led him to discoveries he would never forget. He thought about the lessons learned, the risks taken, and the moments of astonishment that followed. He wondered if this moment would be another of those times, a moment that would change his understanding of the world around him. The possibility thrilled him, made him tingle with anticipation, yet also made him wary. There was something about the object that demanded respect, that required careful thought before any action. He glanced back at the person who had warned him, seeing the worry etched across their face. The eyes were filled with concern, a deep understanding of the potential consequences that he did not fully grasp yet. He felt a sense of responsibility, a sense that the choice was his alone but that it carried weight beyond what he could see. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the decision he was about to make. Minutes passed, each one stretching longer than the last. He felt his hand twitch again, an irresistible pull toward the object. The mind and the heart were in conflict, one urging caution, the other urging exploration. He could feel the quiet hum of curiosity, the whisper of possibility, the subtle thrill of discovery. The tension was almost unbearable, the room filled with silent anticipation, every shadow seeming to hold a secret, every beam of light highlighting the object's mystery. He closed his eyes briefly, taking a deep breath, trying to steady the swirl of emotions inside him. He imagined what it would feel like to touch it, to finally know its secrets, to see what had caused so much warning. The thought was both exciting and frightening, a mix that made his heart race and his mind focus sharply. It was as if time had slowed down, the world outside fading into insignificance, leaving only him, the object, and the silent tension between curiosity and caution. Opening his eyes, he looked at the object once more. It seemed to shimmer even more, almost acknowledging his presence, almost inviting him to take the next step. He could feel a strange connection, an invisible thread pulling him closer. The room seemed alive in that moment, holding its breath, the air thick with anticipation. He knew that whatever he did next would matter, that the choice was crucial, and that the consequences could be surprising in ways he could not yet imagine. He stepped slightly closer again, his hand hovering just above the object, not touching yet, feeling the pull and the warning at the same time. His thoughts raced, trying to anticipate what might happen, what could go wrong, what wonders might be revealed. He felt a mix of fear and excitement, a combination that made every nerve in his body alert, every sense heightened. The quiet of the room, the stillness of the air, the weight of the warning, all of it created a moment suspended in time, a moment that could change everything. As he lingered there, the person who had warned him shifted slightly, their eyes never leaving him, a silent reminder of caution and care. He knew they understood something he did not, knew that the warning came from experience, knowledge, or instinct. Yet, the pull of curiosity was irresistible, the desire to understand, to discover, to be amazed was stronger than anything else. He felt a shiver of anticipation, a thrill that made the air feel electric, charged with the promise of revelation. And so, he stood there, hands suspended above the object, heart racing, mind alive with possibilities. The warning echoed in his ears. The allure of the object held him in its quiet, powerful grip. He felt a mixture of fear, excitement, and wonder, a perfect storm of emotions that made the moment feel monumental. It was the calm before the storm, the instant before action, the point at which the ordinary could become extraordinary. The decision loomed, and the tension was palpable, stretching the seconds into an eternity of anticipation. It was a moment of choice, a test of courage and curiosity, and the story of what happened next was waiting to be written. He stood there for a long moment, hand hovering above the object, the air around him tense with anticipation. Every instinct told him to step back, to leave it alone, but curiosity had a grip on him that nothing else could loosen. The warning echoed again in his mind, clear and insistent, but he could not shake the feeling that touching it would reveal something incredible. He wondered what it might be hiding, what story it might tell, or what secret it could hold. His fingers twitched involuntarily, drawn to the object like a magnet. He took a slow, careful breath, trying to calm the excitement and fear that mingled together. The room seemed to grow quieter, as if holding its own breath, waiting for him to make a choice. He could feel the warmth of the sunlight falling across the shelves, but it felt different now, almost charged, highlighting the object's strange allure. Each detail became clearer, the intricate lines, the subtle glow, the way it seemed to pulse gently as if it had its own heartbeat. He felt a shiver run through him, a mix of awe and nervousness that made the hairs on his arms stand up. As he watched, his mind wandered through possibilities. He thought about what could happen if he touched it. Would it move, change, or reveal something hidden? Could it be dangerous, or was it simply misunderstood? Every scenario played out in his mind like a small movie, some thrilling, some terrifying. He felt a rush of adrenaline, a need to know, a hunger for discovery that made him lean in just a little closer. His eyes traced every line, every curve, every detail, trying to memorize them before the moment came. He remembered stories he had heard in passing, tales of people who had ignored warnings and stumbled upon astonishing discoveries. The cautionary tales mingled with tales of wonder, and he realized that the line between danger and discovery could be very thin. He thought about the people who had warned him, how seriously they had said those words. But he also remembered that warnings were often given because someone did not understand what they themselves could not control. That thought pushed him further toward the object, curiosity burning brighter. He looked around the room again, taking in the quiet, the scattered objects, the dust motes floating lazily in the sunlight. Everything seemed normal, yet he felt a strange tension in the air, a subtle vibration that suggested something extraordinary might happen. He noticed the small details, the way shadows shifted, the faint sound of a draft from the window, the soft creak of the floorboards as he shifted his weight. All of it added to the sense that the room itself was alive in some way, waiting for his next move. For a moment, he considered leaving, retreating to the safety of caution. He thought about what others would say, the potential trouble that could come from ignoring the warning. But the pull of the object was too strong. It was not just curiosity anymore. It was a feeling deep inside, a sense that something remarkable was within reach if he dared to touch it. He felt a quiet determination settle over him, a readiness to step past fear and into the unknown. His mind focused on the present, each breath measured, each heartbeat loud in his ears. He took another step closer, careful and deliberate. His hand moved slightly, almost trembling, as he reached out. He was aware of the warning, aware of the risk, but he could not ignore the fascination that held him. It was as if the object had chosen him, or as if fate had nudged him toward this moment. He paused again, letting the tension build, feeling the energy in the room grow thicker, almost tangible. The anticipation was electric, making his skin tingle, making him hyper-aware of every detail around him. He thought about his own life, about moments when curiosity had led him to unexpected experiences. He remembered times when stepping forward, despite fear, had opened doors he never thought possible. That memory gave him courage, a quiet strength that steadied his hand. He could feel the object waiting, patient but insistent, and he knew that one touch could change everything. His heart raced, his mind sharpened, and he took another small, careful movement closer. The object seemed to respond in subtle ways. It glimmered slightly, as if acknowledging his presence, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. The lines etched into its surface seemed to shift slightly, catching the light differently with each movement. He felt a strange warmth, a vibration that ran from his fingertips through his entire arm, a sensation that made him pause and take a deep breath. He realized that the object was not ordinary. It had a presence, a quiet power that demanded attention and respect. He glanced once more at the person who had warned him, seeing the mixture of worry and hope in their eyes. They did not say anything, but their silence spoke volumes. It was a silent reminder that choices mattered, that actions had consequences, and that curiosity could lead to both danger and discovery. He felt a sense of responsibility, a weight that pressed gently on his shoulders, but it did not deter him. Instead, it focused him, made him aware of the importance of the next step. He moved his hand closer, fingers trembling slightly, aware of every tiny motion. He felt a strange tension building in his chest, a mix of fear and excitement that made him hyper-aware of the object's presence. The lines on its surface seemed almost alive, moving subtly as he approached. He imagined what it would feel like to touch it, to finally bridge the gap between fascination and understanding. The thought sent shivers through him, a mix of anticipation and awe that made his fingers itch with need. The room seemed to hold its breath, the sunlight casting long, soft shadows across the floor and shelves. He could hear the faintest creak as the floor shifted beneath him, each sound amplified in the tense quiet. He felt as if the world had narrowed down to him and the object, everything else fading into the background. It was a private moment, intimate and intense, a pause before action that made every second stretch into eternity. The anticipation was almost unbearable, a delicious tension that teased and pulled at him simultaneously. His mind raced with questions, possibilities, and fears. What would happen if he touched it? Would it move, react, or reveal a secret? Could it be dangerous? Or would it simply confirm what he had suspected all along? He weighed the warnings against his curiosity, the caution against the thrill of discovery. Every nerve in his body was alive, every sense heightened, every thought sharpened by the moment. He could feel history pressing in on him, the weight of what had come before and the possibilities of what might follow. Finally, he let his hand drift closer, almost brushing the object without actually touching it. The sensation was strange, almost electric, a pulse that ran from his fingertips into his arm. It was as if the object recognized him, as if it had been waiting for this precise moment, ready to respond. He felt a surge of excitement and fear, a perfect blend that made him keenly aware of every detail around him. The light, the shadows, the air, the silence. It was a moment suspended in time, a delicate balance between hesitation and action. He thought about the people who had warned him, about their concern and care. He understood now that the warning was not just about the object, but about respect, caution, and the unknown. Yet he also felt that discovery required stepping into the unknown, risking fear for the chance to witness something extraordinary. That thought strengthened his resolve, focused his mind, and quieted the nerves that threatened to shake his hand. He was ready, poised on the edge of discovery, every sense alert, every breath measured. As his hand hovered just above the object, he felt a strange connection, a silent communication that transcended words. It was as if the object was alive in a subtle way, responding to his attention, acknowledging his presence, and waiting for the final step. The room seemed to pulse with anticipation, the air charged with the promise of revelation. He could feel the tension in every corner, the weight of expectation, the delicate balance between hesitation and action. And so he stayed there, hand trembling slightly, mind racing with curiosity and fear, aware of the choice before him. The warning lingered in his mind, a clear, insistent echo, but the pull of the object was stronger. He knew that one touch could change everything, that the moment would be remembered, and that the story of what happened next was about to unfold. The suspense was electric, the anticipation almost unbearable, as he prepared to step beyond caution and into the unknown. Ready to see what the object would reveal when touched, he finally made the decision. With a deep, steadying breath, he let his fingers make contact with the object. The moment his skin brushed against it, a shock ran through him, not painful but startling in a way that made him jerk slightly. The surface was cool and smooth, yet it vibrated gently, almost like it was alive. He froze, eyes wide, feeling a strange energy moving from his fingers up his arms and settling deep in his chest. The room seemed to shift, the air thickening, the silence suddenly heavier and more intense. Everyone in the room reacted immediately. There were gasps, startled murmurs, and a few steps back. The people who had warned him looked at him with a mixture of fear and astonishment, unsure of what to do next. He could see it in their eyes, they had not expected this. The object, in his hands now, seemed to hum softly, almost acknowledging his touch. He felt a mix of fear and awe, his heart racing faster with every second, his mind struggling to process what was happening. At first, nothing visible changed. The object remained still, calm, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. But then he noticed subtle movements. The lines etched into its surface seemed to shift slightly, as if forming patterns that had not been there before. Shadows played along the curves, creating shapes that looked deliberate, intentional. He realized he was witnessing something remarkable, something beyond ordinary understanding. The warning had been serious, but it had not prepared anyone for this extraordinary moment. He held the object gently, careful not to squeeze or damage it. Every detail felt alive under his fingers. The texture, the slight give in certain areas, the tiny grooves that seemed to guide his touch. His senses were heightened. He could hear the faintest sounds, see the minutest changes in light and shadow. The room seemed to respond to his focus, as if the object's energy extended outward, touching everything nearby. He could feel it connecting not only with him but with the space around him, making everything feel charged and vibrant. He glanced at the faces watching him, and they mirrored his astonishment. Eyes wide, mouth slightly open, a mixture of fear, disbelief, and fascination. He realized that this was no ordinary object. It was extraordinary, something that defied simple explanation. The tension in the room was palpable. Every breath seemed louder, every heartbeat more pronounced. Time itself seemed to stretch, slowing down as he continued to explore the object with his fingers, each movement deliberate, careful, yet full of curiosity. Suddenly, there was a change. A soft click, almost like a whisper, came from the object. He felt it under his fingers, a subtle shift that made him adjust his grip. Then a small panel opened, revealing something hidden within. He could hardly believe his eyes. Inside was a collection of miniature carvings, tiny images that told a story in a way words never could. Each one was detailed and intricate, depicting scenes of people, places, and events that seemed both familiar and mysterious. The object had hidden the secret for who knew how long, waiting for the right person to discover it. He could hardly speak, overwhelmed by the beauty and mystery of what he had uncovered. He traced the carvings gently, marveling at the skill and care that had gone into creating them. Each image seemed to come alive under his touch, telling a story silently but powerfully. He felt a deep connection to the object, as if it had chosen him to reveal its secrets. The feeling was almost spiritual, a sense of wonder that left him breathless. He realized that the warning had not been about preventing discovery but about respect for the object and its hidden truths. As he continued to explore, he noticed that the carvings formed a sequence, a timeline of sorts. He could see the flow of events, the rise and fall of figures, the passage of time captured in miniature form. It was mesmerizing, absorbing him completely. The people around him watched in silence, unable to tear their eyes away. There was no fear now, only awe. Even those who had cautioned him before seemed to understand that something extraordinary was unfolding, something beyond their comprehension yet undeniable in its impact. The energy from the object seemed to intensify slightly, responding to his engagement. He felt warmth radiating from it, a gentle pulse that matched the rhythm of his heartbeat. It was as if the object was alive, communicating through touch and presence rather than words. The sensation was calming yet exhilarating, a delicate balance that kept him both focused and amazed. He realized that every warning he had received was not meant to frighten but to prepare him for the experience, to ensure he approached with care and attention. He explored further, discovering compartments and hidden spaces within the object that continued to reveal more intricate details. Each new revelation was more astonishing than the last. Tiny mechanisms, hidden symbols, and delicate engravings appeared as he manipulated the object carefully. He could feel the intelligence behind its creation, the thought and skill required to make something so small yet so complex. The object seemed to hold a story, a history, a purpose that transcended ordinary understanding. He felt a sudden realization. The object had been waiting for someone like him, someone patient, careful, and curious. It had chosen the right moment and the right person to reveal its mysteries. He was filled with a sense of responsibility, aware that this discovery was not only personal but significant in ways he could not yet fully understand. The room seemed alive with the weight of the moment, the significance of the touch, and the unfolding revelation. The reactions of the others were mixed but unified in astonishment. Whispers filled the air as they tried to comprehend what they were witnessing. Some stepped closer, drawn by the sense of wonder, while others remained cautious, unsure of the consequences. He felt the attention but remained focused, careful not to disrupt the delicate balance that had been established. Every touch, every movement was deliberate, a dialogue with the object that required patience and respect. Hours seemed to pass in moments. He lost track of time as he continued to explore, uncovering hidden meanings and intricate designs. The object revealed more than just visual beauty. It seemed to communicate emotions, experiences, and knowledge. Each detail he uncovered felt like a piece of a puzzle, gradually forming a coherent story. He realized that this moment, this touch, was more than discovery. It was connection, understanding, and a rare glimpse into something extraordinary. Finally, he paused, allowing the object to rest in his hands, absorbing what he had seen and felt. The energy seemed to settle slightly, the pulsing warmth fading to a gentle hum. He looked around at the faces watching him, seeing the mixture of disbelief, wonder, and respect. He understood that the experience had changed him, had altered the perception of everyone present. The warning, once so ominous, now seemed a precursor to a revelation, a guide that had led him to this astonishing moment. He placed the object carefully back on the shelf, though the memory of its touch lingered in his fingers. The room remained silent, each person processing what had just occurred. He felt a profound sense of awe and gratitude, aware that he had been part of something rare and remarkable. The warning had been serious, but the reward of discovery, the astonishment of what his fingers had unlocked, was beyond measure. He understood now that curiosity, respect, and courage could lead to moments that changed everything, moments that would be remembered long after the initial touch. After the initial shock, a quiet wonder settled over the room. The object rested in its place on the shelf, but the effect of his touch lingered like an invisible echo. Everyone was still, unable to speak at first, as if the air itself carried the weight of what had just happened. Their eyes kept returning to the object, which now seemed more than an item on a shelf. It seemed alive, vibrant, and full of secrets. The man's fingers tingled from the contact, and he could feel the energy from the object subtly pulsing through him, a quiet reminder that the moment had changed everything. He looked around at the people who had warned him, noticing their faces full of astonishment. Some had their mouths open in disbelief, others shook their heads slowly, trying to comprehend what they had witnessed. He realized that this object, which had seemed ordinary to most, held a power and a story that none of them could have imagined. The astonishment in the room was tangible, almost like a physical presence pressing gently against the walls and air. The quiet was no longer tense. It had become respectful, filled with awe and recognition of something beyond ordinary understanding. He felt a wave of emotions wash over him: pride, amazement, and a deep sense of humility. He had been the one to take the step others had feared, the one to bridge the gap between curiosity and discovery. Yet he did not feel superior, he felt honored. He realized that what he had done was not merely an act of touching, but an interaction, a silent conversation with an object that had waited patiently for someone ready to understand it. Every line, every groove, every detail he had felt was now a memory, a part of him that would never fade. The object itself seemed to respond subtly to the attention it received. The patterns on its surface shimmered faintly, catching the light in ways they hadn't before. It was as if it was acknowledging the experience, almost approving of the careful, respectful way he had explored it. He could feel a connection forming, one that transcended words, a silent bond between human curiosity and the quiet wisdom embedded in the object. It was astonishing to think that something so small and unassuming could hold such presence, such depth, and such mystery. The room began to hum with quiet discussion. Voices were low, filled with wonder and disbelief, each person trying to describe what they had seen. They spoke of the carvings, the hidden compartments, and the intricate details that had revealed themselves. Each explanation was laced with amazement, each observation confirming that what they had witnessed was extraordinary. He listened to their words, understanding that the astonishment was not just about the object, but about the courage and curiosity that had unlocked its secrets. He could see the change in the room, the subtle shift in energy. The people who had once warned him were now quietly admiring his bravery, recognizing that their caution had been necessary but that their fear had also limited understanding. He sensed a new respect forming, not only for him but for the possibilities that lay in careful exploration and the willingness to step into the unknown. The astonishment was shared, collective, a bond between all who had witnessed the moment and the extraordinary object at the center. He remembered the warning again, but now it seemed less ominous and more meaningful. It had been a guide, a preparation for the experience, a way to emphasize the importance of respect and care. The object had demanded attention, and the warning had ensured that he approached with the right mindset. He realized that the astonishment everyone felt was as much about the interaction and respect as it was about the object itself. The lesson was subtle but powerful. Curiosity and caution together could reveal wonders that neither alone could unlock. He reflected on the carvings he had discovered. Each image told a story, and each story seemed to resonate with everyone in the room. People leaned closer, studying the intricate details, trying to imagine the lives, events, and experiences represented. There was a sense of shared discovery, a communal appreciation for the beauty and intelligence embedded in the object. The astonishment was no longer personal. It had spread, touching everyone present, creating a shared moment of wonder that would be remembered for a long time. The man felt a renewed sense of connection to the object. It had revealed something profound, and he knew that the moment would leave a lasting impression on him. The pulse of energy he had felt earlier remained, a quiet reminder of the extraordinary interaction. He felt gratitude, a deep appreciation for the opportunity to witness and participate in something so unique. He understood that this experience was rare, a fleeting intersection of curiosity, respect, and the hidden wonders of the world. As he observed the reactions of others, he noticed small, subtle changes. Some were smiling quietly, unable to hide their amazement. Others were whispering softly, sharing observations with one another, their faces alight with wonder. The astonishment was not just in the extraordinary details of the object, but in the realization that moments of discovery could appear unexpectedly, changing perception and inspiring awe. The man understood that he had not only discovered something hidden, but had also unlocked a shared sense of possibility and wonder. He returned his attention to the object, studying it once more. The carvings, the hidden compartments, the intricate patterns, all seemed to have a life of their own, a silent story waiting to be fully understood. He felt a sense of reverence, knowing that what he had experienced was rare and remarkable. The astonishment in the room mirrored his own, a reflection of the profound impact that a single act of curiosity and courage could have. The object had responded to respect and patience, and in doing so, had created a moment that transcended ordinary experience. He could sense that the astonishment would not fade quickly. The memory of the touch, the revelation of the hidden details, and the shared wonder of the moment had created a lasting impression. He felt a quiet pride, not in his bravery alone, but in the collective experience, the recognition that the extraordinary could be unlocked through careful observation and respectful interaction. The room, once filled with warning and tension, was now alive with awe, appreciation, and a renewed sense of curiosity. The object continued to shimmer softly, reflecting the light in gentle patterns that seemed almost deliberate. He traced the outlines of the carvings with his eyes, remembering the sensation of touch, the energy that had flowed through his fingers, and the way the room had seemed to respond. It was a moment that combined discovery, respect, and astonishment, a perfect convergence that left everyone in the room deeply moved. He understood that this was not just an object, but a reminder of the power of curiosity guided by care and attention. As the day moved on, the astonishment slowly transformed into reflection. People discussed what they had witnessed, sharing their interpretations and insights. The man listened, realizing that the experience had opened a space for dialogue, imagination, and shared appreciation. The object had become more than a mystery. It had become a catalyst for connection and understanding, a focal point for astonishment that would continue to inspire and engage. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the interaction had created something meaningful, memorable, and profound. He glanced once more at the object, now resting calmly, its secrets revealed yet still hinting at further depths. The astonishment in the room was a living thing, growing and shifting as people processed the experience. He felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, not in conquering or mastering, but in participating, in engaging, and in honoring the opportunity to witness something extraordinary. The experience had changed him, and he knew it had changed everyone else present as well. The room, once ordinary, had become a place of wonder, astonishment, and possibility. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, the man took a deep breath and let the moment settle. He felt gratitude, awe, and a sense of shared wonder that would remain with him. The astonishment was not fleeting. It was a memory, a lesson, a spark that would ignite curiosity and respect in future moments. He understood now that the warning had been more than caution. It had been preparation for astonishment, guidance toward a rare and meaningful experience that would leave a lasting impression on everyone who had been present. Days passed after the astonishing moment, but the memory of the object and what had happened remained vivid. The man often found himself thinking about it, remembering the warmth under his fingers, the subtle hum, and the hidden carvings that told stories beyond words. It was as if the object had left a mark on him, a reminder of the power of curiosity and the rewards of careful attention. Every time he recalled the moment, a sense of wonder and respect returned, keeping the experience alive in his mind. He began to notice subtle changes in how he approached life. Small decisions, interactions, and choices felt more thoughtful, more deliberate. The astonishment had taught him patience and the importance of observing before acting. He realized that moments of discovery often required a balance between courage and caution. The warning that had once seemed restrictive now made perfect sense. It had guided him to approach with care and respect, ensuring that the experience was meaningful rather than reckless. The people around him also seemed affected. They would sometimes glance at the object and share quiet conversations, whispers of amazement and curiosity. The shared astonishment created a bond, an unspoken connection between everyone who had witnessed it. The story of the object began to circulate in small circles, not as gossip, but as a tale of wonder and respect. People spoke carefully, choosing words that conveyed the significance of what had occurred without diminishing its mystery. The room where the object rested had become a place of quiet reverence, a space where curiosity and respect were honored. He returned to the object occasionally, not to seek more surprises, but to reflect on the experience and the lessons it carried. Each time he approached it, he felt the familiar pulse of energy, the subtle hum that seemed to acknowledge him. He studied the carvings again, noticing details he had missed before, appreciating the skill, care, and thought behind each mark. It was a slow, quiet process, a meditation of sorts, reminding him that understanding and connection took time and attention. The object had taught him more than astonishment. It had taught him presence. Life outside that room continued, but the experience remained with him. He noticed how easily moments of wonder could be overlooked in daily routines. The astonishment from touching the object had heightened his awareness of beauty and mystery in ordinary things. The way sunlight fell through leaves, the texture of old wood, the rhythm of a gentle breeze. He felt more attentive, more engaged, and more grateful for the small wonders around him. The object had expanded his perspective, reminding him that curiosity and respect could turn ordinary moments into extraordinary experiences. He shared some of his insights quietly with those who had witnessed the moment. Not the details that would spoil the object's mystery, but the lessons learned from patience, care, and curiosity. People listened intently, inspired by his reflections and the memory of the astonishing event. They began to approach other aspects of life with the same balance, paying attention, showing respect, and remaining open to discovery. The story of the object became more than a tale of amazement. It became a gentle guide, encouraging thoughtful exploration and wonder. Over time, he realized that the impact of that moment extended beyond the room and beyond the object itself. It had changed him, the people around him, and even the way they viewed the world. He saw the value of approaching unknown situations with a mix of curiosity and caution, understanding that careful attention could reveal extraordinary truths. The memory of the touch, the hidden carvings, and the astonishment they caused became a reference point, a standard for how to engage with the unknown in thoughtful, respectful ways. He also began to reflect on the nature of warnings and restrictions. He understood that warnings were not always meant to limit but to guide, to prepare individuals for what they might encounter. The object had been dangerous only in the sense that approaching it without respect could have led to mishap or misunderstanding. By heeding the warning but following curiosity carefully, he had unlocked something extraordinary. He realized that life often offered similar moments, opportunities that required both attention and courage, moments where balance was key. The object remained a mystery in many ways. There were still carvings whose meaning he had not fully grasped, compartments he had not fully explored, and patterns whose purpose remained elusive. Yet he was not frustrated. He understood that some mysteries were meant to unfold gradually, over time, and that part of the wonder was in the ongoing discovery. He approached the object with patience, not to conquer it, but to engage, to learn, and to appreciate. The astonishment it had caused was not fleeting but an invitation to deeper understanding. People who came to see the object were often drawn into the same state of quiet amazement. They would watch and study, feeling the presence and energy, but he always encouraged them to approach with care and respect. He had learned that the true astonishment came not from careless touching or immediate reaction, but from patient engagement, thoughtful observation, and a willingness to let the experience unfold naturally. The object became a teacher, guiding everyone who interacted with it toward patience, curiosity, and awe. In the end, he realized that the moment of touching the object had changed not only the way he saw the object but also the way he approached life. Astonishment, he understood, was not merely a reaction. It was an opportunity for growth, reflection, and connection. He carried the memory with him in everything he did, finding wonder in small things and teaching others to do the same. The warning, the touch, and the astonishment had combined to create a lasting lesson, one that emphasized respect, curiosity, and the profound beauty of discovery. Even now, when he walked past the shelf where the object rested, he felt the familiar pulse of energy, a gentle reminder of that extraordinary day. He smiled quietly, knowing that the world held many hidden marvels, waiting for those willing to approach them with care, curiosity, and respect. The story of what his fingers had done remained a source of amazement, a reminder that one careful choice could open the door to experiences that were not only astonishing but life-changing. The memory of that moment continued to inspire, guide, and remind him that true discovery required both courage and patience, and that the rewards of engagement were far greater than anyone could have anticipated.